The story begins with a man from Norway named Roger, a professional art thief who has his own set of strict rules every time he pulls off a job. First, he always studies the target's house carefully before breaking in. Second, he never spends more than 10 minutes inside to avoid getting caught off guard. Third, he wears full body protection, covering his hands, feet, and face, so he never leaves a trace of DNA behind. Fourth, he never wastes time stealing fake paintings, no matter how convincing they look, since it only takes a week for experts to confirm if they're genuine or not. And finally, Roger believes that sooner or later, he'll face one of two fates. Either he'll find a priceless masterpiece, or he'll get caught. Outside of his secret life, Roger works as a headhunter, someone who recruits and evaluates candidates for high-level corporate positions. He's successful, well-known, and lives in Norway's upper class. By day, he hires people. By night, he hunts them. This is headhunters. However, despite his high income, Roger's expenses are out of control. He spends lavishly, especially for his wife, Diana, giving her everything she wants. To maintain his ego and their luxurious lifestyle, Roger turns to stealing valuable paintings, even though Diana already runs her own art gallery. Diana, however, longs for a child, something Roger isn't ready to think about. Sadly, beneath their perfect marriage, both of them are unfaithful. Roger has been seeing another woman named Lotta, often right after dropping his wife off at work, but eventually he ends things with Lotta after she asks him to meet someone at a dinner party. At the same time, Roger suspects that Diana is also having an affair, though he doesn't yet know with whom. As a headhunter, Roger is used to interviewing wealthy and successful candidates for top corporate positions. But behind the scenes, he uses these interviews to gather personal information. He asks about their families, their homes, and even what kind of art they own. It's all part of his secret method to choose his next burglary target. One day, he interviews a man named Brood, a potential CEO candidate for a company called Pathfinder. Roger rejects him for the position, but quietly decides Brugge will be his next target. Roger isn't working alone. He has a partner named Ove, who he always contacts through payphones to avoid leaving a trail. Ove works for a home security company, giving him access to advanced lock systems. Through his company's servers, Ove can secretly disable alarms and open digital locks without a trace. With Ove's help, Roger breaks into Brugge's house effortlessly. Inside, he quickly replaces a luxury painting with a perfect replica he printed using a high-resolution printer. The difference is nearly impossible to see. Roger slips out as soon as the swap is done, and Ove locks the door behind him, wiping the access log so there is no trace anyone came in that afternoon. The job goes smoothly. Ove knows where Roger hides the painting in the car, tucked above the rear window, so he collects it before dawn, moves it to a buyer in Sweden, and takes his 20% cut for cracking the locks. The sale lands at 100,000 krone. Roger pockets 80, but it is still not enough to keep his lifestyle afloat. At the opening of Diana's new art gallery, she introduces Roger to a Dutch man named Clas, the former director of a GPS tech company called Hote, a rival to Pathfinder, the firm that hired Roger to find their next CEO. Sensing an opportunity, Roger sets up a meeting to discuss the CEO role with Clas. The mood shifts when a famous Norwegian detective, Brede, shows up at the party to sniff around recent art thefts, and Roger feels the pressure. Back home, Diana tells Roger about a lost painting by the artist Rubens, stolen by German forces in Antwerp in 1941. After decades missing, it is now hanging in Clas's apartment, a piece his grandmother once received from a German soldier during the war. Clas has asked Diana to verify its authenticity. She has advised him to contact a museum and plans to move the painting there next week. By her estimate, it could be worth hundreds of millions of krone. Roger raises a glass to Diana's gallery, but inside he is thrilled. He has just found his next target. Clas's apartment, and the payout could be huge. That night he calls Ove again from a payphone, safer that way, though Ove is busy with his girlfriend. Ove eventually agrees to meet the next day at 1 in the afternoon. The following morning, tempers flare at home. After 7 years of marriage, Roger still refuses to consider having a child, and the argument hangs in the air as he heads out to meet Ove at a remote apartment in the woods. They map out the plan. Ove will produce a Rubens replica and, as usual, fence the real piece in Sweden. Roger will have lunch with Clas on Monday, feel him out for the CEO role, and scout the apartment. Ove resists at first, wanting time alone with his girlfriend, but changes his mind once he hears how valuable the painting could be. Over lunch, Clas does not bite on Roger's personal questions right away. Later, he invites Roger to work out, and once he is winded, the details start to slip. Clas is divorced, has no children, but keeps a dog at his home in Amsterdam. He is ex-military with scars across his back from a mission in Bolivia, and he served in a special unit called Trek that tracked fugitives and missing people. After leaving the service, Hote brought him in to help improve their ultra-small GPS transmitters for finding people. As they wrap up, Clas mentions he will fly back to Amsterdam first, then return to Norway. When Roger gets home, he finds a note from Diana saying she'll be home late after meeting a client interested in one of her paintings. The next morning, he puts his plan into action. With Ova's help unlocking the apartment remotely through his company's servers, Roger breaks into Clas's home, just as he's done many times before. He quickly locates the Rubens painting and swaps it with the perfect replica. As he finishes, Roger pauses for a moment, catching sight of a child playing outside. The image makes him think of Diana and her wish to have a family. Feeling a sudden rush of emotion, he calls her, unaware that what he's about to discover will shatter him. Inside Clas's bedroom, Roger finds Diana's phone. The realization hits hard. His suspicion was right. She's been seeing Clas behind his back. What makes it worse is that he only planned this heist to secure their future, to make enough money to start a family. Heartbroken, Roger returns home. Diana claims she lost her phone at the gallery, but he knows the truth. Still, he stays quiet, unable to confront her, burdened by his own guilt for cheating too. The next day, Roger brings Clas to meet the Pathfinder executives, though his mind is elsewhere. During the meeting, Clas mentions that Hote, his former company, has been developing a special gel capable of holding hundreds of microscopic GPS transmitters in a single milliliter. His presentation is impressive, but Roger refuses to recommend him for the position. It isn't business. It's personal. He's too angry over the affair to even consider helping Clas. Later that night, Roger calls Ove and instructs him to collect the Rubens painting from his car and sell it immediately in Sweden. But on his way home, Roger unexpectedly runs into Lotta, who tells him how much she's missed him. She leans in close, but Roger gently pushes her away, reminding her that what they had is over. The following day, over lunch with Diana, Roger calmly mentions that Clas didn't get the Pathfinder job and that he'll make sure no company in Norway will ever hire him again. He doesn't explain why. Then almost casually, he asks if Diana ever found her missing phone at the gallery. It's his subtle way of letting her know that he's aware of her betrayal, quietly drawing a line between her and Clas once and for all. Meanwhile, Ove parks his car in the usual spot, a few hundred miles from Roger's home, preparing to pick up the stolen Rubens painting from Roger's car. But the next morning, Roger is horrified to find Ove dead inside his vehicle, twisted backward in the driver's seat, his knee still pressed against it. Shocked, Roger moves the body to the trunk and soon spots a small needle embedded in the seat cushion. It becomes clear that someone planted it there, and Ove must have been poisoned when he leaned in to grab the painting hidden above the rear window. Moments later, Diana arrives, greeting Roger warmly and gently running her fingers through his hair, completely unaware of what's just happened. Roger drives to a nearby lake, intending to sink Ova's body by weighing it down with rocks. But to his shock, Ova suddenly gasps for air. The poison didn't fully take effect. Roger quickly rushes him to his house, following the address of his ID. Not long after, Ove regains consciousness. Roger explains what happened, telling him about the poison needle and confiding that Diana has been having an affair with Clas. Ove, still in agony, begs to go to the hospital, but Roger refuses. That would expose their entire criminal operation. Instead, he tries to help by giving Ove milk, hoping it will weaken the poison. While reaching into the fridge, Roger grabs a silver weapon for safety. But things spiral out of control. In pain and panic, Ove turns the gun on Roger, and in the struggle, Roger accidentally pulls the trigger, killing Ove instantly. Elsewhere, Clas is on the move. He's tracking someone, either Ove or Roger, using a microscopic GPS transmitter developed by his company, Hote. Before long, he locates Roger and attacks. Roger barely escapes with his life, realizing now that Clas's military background, his tracking skills, and his company's technology make him a dangerous enemy. It all fits. Clas must be hunting him for stealing the Rubens painting. To break free, Roger throws away his phone to avoid being tracked and switches to Ove's car, bringing the painting with him. He dumps his clothes and even his wedding ring into the lake, changing into Ove's work uniform just in case a tracker is hidden on his clothing. Then he drives to Ove's apartment, paying the landlord, Lander, to hide the car inside a storage shed so no one, not even Clas, can find it. But somehow Clas still manages to trace him. Roger begins to suspect that the tracker is inside his own body. At Ove's apartment, Roger sets down a few of his belongings, including the silver weapon, which he leaves on the table. He hides the stolen Rubens painting above the bathroom ceiling panels, just to be safe. But before long, his worst fear comes true. Clas shows up with his dog, holding the same silver weapon he must have taken from the table. Desperate to stay hidden, Roger dives into a pit of sewage. It's disgusting, but it saves his life. Breathing through an old toilet paper tube, he stays perfectly still as Clas' dog sniffs around above him. The overpowering stench masks Roger's scent, and eventually they leave. When the coast is clear, Roger rushes to Ova's car, only to find it sabotaged. Clas has cut the engine wires to stop him from escaping. Thinking fast, Roger spots a tractor nearby and decides to use it instead. He goes to Lander's house to find the keys, but discovers Lander already dead, unsure of who killed him. Roger retrieves the keys from Lander's pocket and heads back toward the storage shed. Suddenly, Clas' dog attacks, biting deep into his shoulder. Roger fights back and kills the animal before finally making his getaway on the tractor. But his luck doesn't last long. He's pursued once again, and in the chaos, the tractor flips over. The car behind him, which had only been trying to pass, stops abruptly. The driver is horrified at the sight of Roger, covered in blood and filth. Roger is rushed to the hospital, barely conscious. When he wakes, his wounds are bandaged, including the deep bite mark on his shoulder. A nurse brings him food, but Roger notices 2 police officers standing guard outside his door. Thinking quickly, he leaves the door open and hides in the closet, hoping they'll assume he's already escaped. Once the coast is clear, he sneaks out, only to run straight into 2 detectives. To his surprise, they mistake him for Ove and accuse him of murdering Lander. Roger plays along, pretending to be Ove, so his real identity stays hidden. While being driven to the station, one officer steps out to handle a reckless truck blocking the road. That's when Roger remembers something Clas said earlier about a new gel that could hold hundreds of GPS transmitters. Suddenly, it all clicks. Clas must have been tracking him through the hair gel Diana once used on him before he left home. Roger warns the officers, but it's too late. The speeding truck slams into the police car, sending it rolling off the road. Clas climbs out, ready to finish the job, but Roger stays motionless, pretending to be dead. Believing his target is gone, Clas drives off. When it's quiet again, Roger crawls from the wreckage, aching all over. He unlocks his handcuffs using a key from one of the dead officers, then shaves his head with scissors and a razor he finds in the car. He stuffs the cut hair into a snack bag and takes a police weapon. To cover his tracks, he swaps clothes with one of the officers and crushes his own fingertips so his prints can't be identified. Now it will look like Roger, mistaken as Ove, died in the crash with the others. He walks all the way to the city, exhausted, and stops at a payphone to call Diana for help. But he can't bring himself to speak. Overcome with emotion, he breaks down in tears, missing her deeply. Finally, he heads to Lotta's apartment, hoping for help. But while searching her kitchen for scissors to remove his bandages, he freezes. Inside the drawer lies a pen marked with the Hote Company logo. In that instant, he realizes Lotta has been connected to Clas all along. Meanwhile, Lotta secretly sends a message to Clas, alerting him that Roger has shown up at her apartment. But Roger notices it instantly. He grabs her phone, strikes her in panic, and forces her to tell the truth. Cornered and terrified, Lotta finally confesses everything. She reveals that Clas never left his old company, Hote. In fact, he was still working for them under orders to infiltrate Pathfinder and steal their new technology. Lotta's role was to get close to Roger, become his lover, and eventually introduce him to Clas so the plan could move forward. But when Roger ended their relationship, Clas had to come up with a new strategy. That's when he targeted Diana, using the story of the missing Rubens painting to draw her in, eventually turning their connection into an affair. His goal was to get closer to Roger again and find another way into Pathfinder. When Roger later rejected him for the CEO position, Clas, humiliated and enraged, decided to kill him. It turns out Hote was on the brink of bankruptcy, and stealing Pathfinder's technology was the only thing that could save it. The project was worth billions. Clas sent Lotta to meet Roger one last time, pretending she wanted to see him again. During that visit, she secretly applied a tracking gel to his hair. So it wasn't Diana who planted the gel when she touched Roger's hair before he left home. It was Lotta during their brief reunion. Clas even prepared a poisoned needle in Roger's car seat, intending to strike Roger himself, but it accidentally hit Ove instead when he leaned in to take the painting. Lotta breaks down crying, saying she wants to be free from Clas's threats. Moved for a moment, Roger goes to the kitchen to get her a glass of water. But suddenly, Lotta attacks. Roger struggles to defend himself, and when she lunges again, he has no choice but to shoot her. She dies instantly. After everything, Roger returns home, exhausted and covered in guilt. Diana arrives shortly after, shocked by his condition. She admits she had been hurt by Roger's words before, which is why she fell into Clas's arms. But she confesses she regrets everything. The only man she truly loves is Roger. She even promises to give up on having a child if it means she can stay by his side. For the first time, Diana speaks from her heart, and in that moment, Roger realizes she was never part of Clas's plan. While Diana tends to his wounds, Roger admits to his affair with Lotta, his long-running series of art thefts, and the chaos that followed involving Clas and the police. He knows he has to run, not just because Clas is still after him, but because sooner or later the authorities will realize he survived the crash. For now, they still believe he's Ove, which gives him a small head start. Diana, though heartbroken, hands Roger her credit card so he'll have enough money to disappear. But she also expresses her disappointment. Roger risked everything, even turned to crime, just to buy her expensive things and maintain their luxury life. He admits he did it out of fear, terrified of losing her. His jealousy had even gone so far that he stopped her from having a child, afraid she'd love their baby more than him. After 7 years of marriage, Roger finally speaks the truth, and for the first time, they both understand each other completely. Once his wounds are dressed, Roger leaves for the hospital where the bodies from the crash are kept. At the same time, Diana sends a message to Clas, asking him to meet her at his apartment. Back at the hospital, Roger retrieves a snack wrapper containing his own hair, the one with the GPS tracker still inside, and narrowly crosses paths with Detective Brady before slipping away. He heads to Ove's apartment, where Ove's body still lies on the bed, and starts wiping away every trace of his fingerprints. Just then, Clas bursts in with a silver weapon aimed directly at him. But Roger is ready. He knows Clas has been following the GPS signal from that snack wrapper and planned for it. Before Clas arrived, Roger had activated the apartment's security system so that the CCTV feed, visible from Ove's office, would show only Clas entering the scene. A gunfight breaks out. Roger fires back using Ove's gun, while Clas empties his own weapon. But there's a twist. Earlier, Diana had secretly gone to Clas's apartment and replaced his bullets with blanks. On the security footage, Clas is seen being shot multiple times, alone in the frame. With no fingerprints left behind and no visible trace of Roger, the scene looks like Clas was killed during his own attempted crime. With the danger finally over, Roger rushes back to Diana. They drive away together, leaving the chaos behind. In the final scene, Roger reveals the clever steps he took to cover his tracks. He had wiped clean the weapon he used to kill Lotta and placed it in Ove's hand, making it look as if Ove had been the one who murdered her. The silver weapon that Clas used during their final confrontation was actually the same weapon Roger had once fired to kill Ove. With that setup, the police would have every reason to believe that Ove and Clas were partners in art theft who turned on each other over a disagreement. The evidence pointed to them as two criminals who ended up dead after a violent conflict. Clas was also clearly linked to the murder of Lander, tying everything together neatly. But there was one small problem Roger couldn't fix: the time of Ove's death. It didn't match up with the timing of Clas's shooting. To make it all align, Roger anonymously uploaded the CCTV footage from Ove's house to the internet. The video showed only Clas at the scene, forcing Detective Brady, who cared deeply about his public image, to rush a conclusion before the case could damage his reputation. Faced with the evidence, Brady declared it a simple dispute between two art thieves who killed each other. Roger's plan had worked perfectly. In the end, peace finally returns to Roger's life. He and Diana truly understand each other now, stronger than ever after everything they've been through. Diana is pregnant, and the two sell their lavish home, choosing a simpler place that suits their new beginning. And in a fitting twist, Roger appoints Brugd, the man he once rejected, as the new CEO of Pathfinder. So the moral of the story is, if your marriage is falling apart, maybe don't fix it by stealing a $100 million painting and jumping into a sewage pit, bro. Therapy costs less and smells better.